For about 3 weeks now, I had an article entitled The 10 Things I Want People to Know About Unitarian Universalism open on my desktop. Written by Galen Gingrich, who is the minister at All Souls in New York City. It was a nice summation of a lot of true things about UUs, but I kept getting stuck on number 2. And until I could make peace with that, I couldn't post it. I never posted it. He said that we don't know what we believe yet because we're still evolving. And relax, just give us time. He said that as if there were a place that we were going that would have a defined, if you will, landscape. I have a great deal of respect for this man, but I really disagree on this point. I think it does us a huge disservice. I suspect that this comes about because he comes from a tradition that had very fixed points. I believe he was Mennonite, which is quite a journey, but one we've seen in our own community. That may cause him to lean even unconsciously towards a more fixed theology. I don't think Unitarian Universalism is headed toward a fixed notion of anything, at least in terms of belief. I think we want to lean here a bit on Kohlberg and his 6 stages of moral development. I'm sorry, this might be better as a PowerPoint at the moment. There are 2 places where I'm doing a number 1 and a number 2, but you'll just have to get it from mine. Very quickly, they look like this. The first 2 are what they call pre-conventional. Reasoners at this level judge the morality of an action by its direct consequences. They are totally concerned with self. Stage 1 is obedience and punishment driven. Individuals focus on the direct consequences of their actions on themselves. Stage 2 is interest driven and wonders, what's in it for me? What's God going to give me? And then there's conventional. And the conventional level of moral reasoning is typical of adolescents and adults. To reason in a conventional way is to judge the morality of actions by comparing them to society's or the accepted views and explanations and expectations. It's characterized by an acceptance of society's conventions concerning right and wrong. One obeys rules and follows society's norms even when there are no consequences for either obedience or disobedience. So stage 3 is good intentions as determined by social consensus. The self enters society by conforming to social standards. And that's our move to be part of something. Stage 4 is authority and social order obedience driven. It's important to obey laws, dictums, social conventions because of their importance in maintaining functioning society. Most active members of society remain at stage 4, where morality is still prominently dictated by an outside force. Post-conventional. The post-conventional level, known as the principled level, is marked by a growing realization that individuals are separate entities from society, and that the individual's own perspective may take precedence over society's view. Some theorists have speculated that many people may never reach this level of abstract moral reasoning. And then in stage 5, which is social contract driven, the world is viewed as holding different, unique opinions, rights, and values. Laws are social contracts rather than rigid edicts that promote the general welfare. Is any of this sounding familiar? This is achieved through majority decision and inevitably compromise. Democratic government is ostensibly based on stage 5 reasoning. Once you read that it's about the principle stuff, I think we're talking about sort of where UUs are trying to move about. In stage 6, it's universal ethical principles driven. Moral reasoning is based on abstract reasoning using universal ethical principles. Laws are valid only insofar as they are grounded in justice and a commitment to justice. carries with it an obligation to disobey unjust laws. And although Kohlberg insisted that stage 6 exists, he found it difficult to identify individuals who consistently operated at that level. So, I know, gobbledygook. But when I look at this, I think, yes, stage 5 is where most UUs as individuals and as congregations struggle to be. Kohlberg had us look at it hierarchically, but I wonder if this is simply another brain difference. And in that case, it would require careful attention to the language that allows us to communicate. And if I'm even partially right about this, then Gingrich is misguided, because we're unlikely to go to some place where the rules and the values are not only understood, but also accepted. And whether or not it's hierarchical, I continue to believe that we're the ones who need to find the language that bridges the gaps. If we all want people to be cared for, we're going to have to help develop felt needs for those people in stage 4 so we can work together to make a better world. Because, of course, in the long run, and many of us, I'm sure no one up here, but many of us need to remind ourselves the goal is not to be right. The goal is that kids have enough to eat, that parents have jobs that can support their children, that all people are welcome and safe, that our seniors can continue to participate in life as fully as they are able. Stage 6 is UUism ideal. It's who we'd like to be. It's the Tinkerbell we continuously clap for, dreaming it might someday flicker more brightly. We imagine, but we're not there yet. We're still mulling about in 5, back to 4, back to 5, but I believe that's an okay place. I don't know what it was that popped this thought into my mind the other day, but I was revisiting my thoughts that those of you who have joined are no longer, those of us who have joined, are no longer something else, but we're now UUs. Few of us are cradle UUs. Some huge percentage of us arrived here with bits and pieces of other parts of our lives, and even our cradle kids have been transformed. And I thought of Jean Weston, and I thought, oh, each of us is a beautiful patchwork square, vibrant, with our own tale to tell. Each congregation then becomes a quilt, large or small, pieced together from these beautiful pieces into one large, warm, and beautiful whole. It's good to imagine we might be a quilt, a comforter to one another, to the world, something so homey but so helpful. Quilts are strong things that last for years. They are covered in stories that hold our history. You know who we are by our colors and patterns, beautiful yet diverse. Not one patch is ever the same. The patches are stitched together with the threads of the 7 principles and a little love. Our similarities are in our symbols and our presence, what we care about individually and as a community. Will change from congregation to congregation, but the warmth and the caring, hopefully, will remain. Hopefully, here we find the time, the place, and the wherewithal not only to stitch ourselves into the quilt, but also to begin to prepare ourselves a bit, to help our histories, both the bad and the good, become simply that which led us to this place. We might find a way to take pride in both our scars and in our healing. Let us find a way to notice and take pride in our beauty. If we can get to that place that takes into account and makes peace, not only with where we are now, but also the pieces of our journey that brought us to this gathered community, we can be useful. One of the reasons I look for words like immigrate or evolve, rather than convert or reject, is that I think it's always important to pay attention to our history. If we don't have to see everything we came from as wrong, but rather as just no longer a good fit, I think we can become quite adept at appealing to those who are like our former selves and enlisting them in the good work that needs to be done. There's a moral psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, who, among other things, talks about the 5 pillars of moral decency. Not just once, but twice. I need my whiteboard today. But not surprisingly, like the blind man and the elephant, liberals and conservatives see different pieces. And I think I've spoken about this before, that we think that liberals and conservatives, they're beginning to see that we have different brains, and that when we talk about issues, our brains light up in different pieces of our, we light up differently and in different areas of our brains. And it can be moved around. In fact, we're the proof that some of those things can move around, because many of us were once other. I was embarrassed to remember that the first time I voted for Richard Nixon. Who would think where I am today? But I was a nice Republican girl from a nice Republican town, But so I think we can change that. And there's that great book that I keep sort of rereading pieces of, called How God Changes Our Brain, and it's simply little mantras and 20 minutes of meditation that can change some of that. But so it's like blind men and the elephant. We see issues in the different pieces. So conservatives look at harm that might be done with an issue, and liberals often look at the care that must be taken. Conservatives worry about fairness. Liberals, reciprocity. Conservatives value being in the group. Liberals value loyalty to the ideal. Conservatives wonder what are the clear lines of authority. Liberals wish to engender respect. Conservatives are about establishing purity. Liberals exploring sanctity. And I was thinking, particularly with that last one, it makes it even harder for us to understand, because when you say to a UU congregation the word sanctity, everybody's like, well, I don't know whether I believe in, sanctity, and can't look at, what the notion of sacred ground is, because we're so worried about who might have declared that ground sacred, as opposed to just like, here we are. This is, pay attention, I think one of the best commandments in the Bible is the take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. Every moment, be aware. Where are you? What's the burning bush here? But these are huge differences we're looking at. They could separate us forever unless someone realizes that our unity is not only important, but possible. You think she doesn't want to be a conservative or a liberal? I'm sorry, Faye. But both points of view have real and good things to offer, and they're all on a continuum. Someone has to navigate the whole, because we ask such very different questions about the same events. And if the conservative brain is valuing purity and belonging to a like-minded group, I believe it is liberal religionists, UUs in particular, who must find the language to bridge this enormous gap. In fact, if any of what I have said before has truth to it, we already have the language within us to reach back, across, and forward. We have to find what it is that can help them see us as like-minded, like-hearted, and like-souled. We tend to talk about social issues to people who disagree with us in that same slow, loud voice we use to talk to foreigners, because we all know how helpful that is. They're neither stupid nor hard of hearing. They're just different. We don't need to harden the edges between us. We do need to find ways across. As people of faith, as communities of faith, we want to see the children fed, or the homeless housed, or people of color fairly treated, or to have addressed whatever need it is that our community is best able to stand up for. For me, then, the challenge becomes finding that language. We have to discern which vulnerabilities will tug on their heartstrings and do something together that will be successful in everyone's eyes. If we want to help to make the world be better, we must help others understand that within their framework. I think much of that thinking stems from their fear of not enough, which is sort of interesting when you think of many of these traditions who have this great abundant God, and yet somehow, and they will talk about that, but somehow fail to miss the abundance of life that would be the reflection of that. But fear is very easy to exploit and has been successfully exploited. We have the most ridiculous, small-minded, mean-spirited laws being enacted as a result. We have to believe in enough, and then we have to help them see enough and be generous with enough. And maybe even as much as I hate this notion, measure how much it makes a difference when our kids have enough to eat and graduation rates go up. That's one of the things that UUCSV is working on. And now maybe sex ed. I mean, actually, Sarah's been fielding conversations, calls in from other communities to say, can we teach this next year? Would you consider teaching this sex ed program? You know, without our doing much advertisement. That's pretty exciting. But we need to be about slow and steady erosion of problems that exist. Not problems can't be fixed, not, we're not enough, but wow, we moved from here to here, and that's great. So next time we can move to here. We're not doing huge things in scale, but we are in terms of persistence and vision. And so we have to keep asking ourselves, are we inspiring others to participate? Sometimes that means participate by coming into the church. Sometimes that means participate by helping on projects we're working on. So, are we doing enough? Never, never. And every time we do anything, we should get it in the newspaper. Not simply be, man, will somebody please take this as your life goal, Talk about what we're doing, make us do some more things so we get more stuff in. Every other church group that goes off to visit the mother church, which our group is going to do in a couple of weeks, has a long story written about these kids. And I mean, it's really fun. We're sending however many kids, 10, 5, 8, who knows, off to visit Boston. There should be a story, There should be just a story about parents brave enough to get in the car with them, but, But we don't do it just because we're doing good works, but because people will want to do those things too. The papers are always hungry, despite what we think, for good news stories. They can be a lovely antidote to some of the other ugliness out there, but we have to help. We don't have a lot of money, but we can help gather it up and direct it. We do a little education because we're good at that. And we raise visibility. In our case, not a lot of people can fight with the notion that hungry children need to eat. And this week I got this call saying from somebody I barely know, saying, who is feeding children on the weekends in the valley? And I'm like, in the summer. I'm like, I don't know. So she Googled and I Googled, and in fact, nobody's going to feed kids on the weekends in the summer. And that's a problem. I mean, it's great that somebody's coming to me and going like, wow, we know you do this. Who's doing that? And, then you're going like, nobody. And did I tell you I'm off this summer? But I doubt we'll have a food program by this summer. But it might be something we need to consider by next summer. We'll do what we can. So when I think about Galen's words, I wonder again if it's time for and there are a lot of problems with these words, a systematic theology of Unitarian Universalism. People might scoff. You're going to build a systematic theology of UUism. It's a rather non-theologic tradition. Yes. If we are quilts, however, there is a system to how we're joined together. Crazy quilt or no, there's an order to them, to us. People might also say, you, Anne, are going to do a systematic theology of UUism? Why, yes, because this is a kind of system I understand. Our minds might face in many directions, but our hearts are strong and sound, and it is love that stitches us together. I can't say that I'm there yet. I'm afraid there are a bunch more sermons on these topics. But it feels as if I'm going somewhere. I like the notion of quilts. Some of them are wildly beautiful, as Jean's particle in the wave. Some of them are triumphant, celebrating transformation. And some are worn thin and have come here to seek to be repaired. And still, the love stitches us closer. I don't doubt that we have a lot of work to do in our little community and in our larger one, but I don't think the work is in building a unified theological stance. I think it is celebrating our beautiful differences, and by becoming the love that binds all things, hopes all things, believes all things, endures all things. It is the love that allows us to reshape and reform. It is the love that sends us out into the world, seeking allies so very unlike us, doing good in whatever ways we can. Blessed be.